Time for another edition of RealConvo with Alan Mednick and Miranda Khan. Making a difference because you matter.
So, Miranda, I am so excited about today.
I can see it on your face.
Well, the reason why, and I know I start off with that every show, but I got a feeling you're going to take me on a journey here today.
I am.
Yeah.
I am going to take you on
We're
a
actually
journey.
going, I've never been, actually, I shouldn't say I've never been to Canada. I've been to Niagara Falls, but you're going to be taking me to Canada, right?
Yeah, Don't you know?
Yeah?
Don't you know? Hey, yeah. Yeah.
You've been to Canada before, right?
Well, kind of. I was born there. But I was 4 months old when my parents left. I just happened to be born in Montreal, Canada.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I sound really fancy. I'm not. No, it's like people are like, oh, but I do have dual citizenship. Thank you very much.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, you know what I love about this, about doing these shows now and everything, is that we could talk internationally. We could talk, and we're going to be talking basically globally today. Because we got.
I want to see all those languages. I want to hear it. I should say that you speak.
We got a very important and a very exciting guest on today. This is somebody that I personally, I told them in an email that I really owe them a lot, because obviously getting involved with suicide prevention, you need to have training. You need to know how to talk to people. You need to know what to look for. And this is an organization that has stepped up and really made it really possible. And we're going to go into it a little bit more, but I want to introduce Rick Trimp of Livingworks here. How you doing, Rick?
Very well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to the show. I'm really looking forward to this discussion today.
Yeah,
I am too.
He sounded a little hesitant on saying your last name, but he got it. He got it.
I always
I'm so
do that.
proud of you, Alan.
That's the one thing I always have problems with people's names. So you'll hear me call people buddy a lot or something like that. But
hey, pal, how you doing?
Yeah, I'll get away from that. But anyway, so Rick are you the president or CEO? What is your title?
Of Livingworks.
President of Livingworks. So Livingworks is an organization that I did training with personally. So and people hear me talk about Safe Talk, and I'm a Safe Talk trainer, and I'm also I went through a program called Assist, which is an intervention program with them. It really works, and we're going to get into how it works and the theory behind it. But I could tell you, Rick, and I told you this in the email that I sent you, that because of you, I was able to save lives. And it really means a lot to me to have that knowledge behind me and understand what we need to do to really make it that suicide is preventable and we could help people out there. So to get into it a little bit, Rick, can you just tell us what is Livingworks and how did it get started?
Livingworks is a private organization that does solely suicide prevention education. And so we do research on the topic of suicide. We take that research and we apply it directly into our programs. So all of our programs are evidence-based. What we do is we take our programs and roll them out to every aspect of every community. And so Livingworks has been around for 35 years, greater than 35 years. We work across the globe, and we really focus on that issue of suicide prevention. And we believe that everybody has a role to play in suicide prevention. And Alan, just, I really appreciate your comments on the value of the training, and look forward to having more of that discussion here today.
Yeah, it's amazing. And first of all, the reason why we said we're going international here is because you guys are based in Canada, right?
We are. That's where our headquarters are. Absolutely.
Where are you right now?
I'm sitting here in Calgary, Alberta. I'm a displaced Montanan in Canada, and it's lovely here, right next to the Rocky Mountains. And
oh wow,
it's nice and green here now. Snow is gone.
Now, obviously,
sounds beautiful.
Obviously, you're in Canada. I've learned it here in America, but you guys are global. You teach this in Australia, the UK, all over, right?
That's correct. That's correct. We have offices in across the US, and we also have offices in Australia, but we have trainers globally. We have around 9,000 trainers that instruct our programs globally.
That's great.
I love the whole premise of the organization, because I was kind of doing a little research, and I believe it was like 1983, but it really has like this whole like grassroots effort, you know, that it should encompass the entire community, and that you really do focus on that whole mission that suicide is preventable, and that you don't have to be this so-called medical professional to be able to help someone. And I find that very comforting, you know, that you're getting that message out there.
Absolutely. And, you know, our founder's vision was really about reaching communities of people, because everybody has a role to play in our communities. And that was their vision. That was their dream, to educate across our communities. Our medical professionals are a really important part of this, but not everybody can do every role. And you know, so our medical professionals, our mental health professionals, they play very important roles in this, and we have to take an inclusive approach, because it's a system that actually supports the individual and really, you know, identifies, intervenes, and then takes them on a journey to make sure that they reestablish hope. And so that's really that system approach that our founders had identified back in the early 80s.
I think it was 1983, correct?
That's correct.
I get a little trivia point. Trivia point over here.
You can keep the trivia. I'm going to go in. I'm sorry. I'm going to go into a little statistics here, because people, I mean, we're in a pandemic right now. And obviously, you know, the coronavirus is out there, and it's, you know, it really is a serious subject. But we've also been in a pandemic for the last however many years with suicide. When you look at it, there's over 800,000. This is, I think the CDC came out with this, or I'm not sure, but I think it's over 800,000 people die by suicide every year globally.
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
And so to me, that's a pandemic. And it's something we really need to try and focus in on. How did you guys, you know what, let's go into the different programs, because what we try to talk about is a suicide safer community.
Right.
Can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. And so I've been talking a little bit about everybody has a role to play. And so, you know, and we've talked a little bit about evidence. And so I want to kind of back us up just a little bit to talk about why it is that we're focused on community. And so we've, you know, public health has a lot of really good evidence about developing what they call herd immunity. And so you get a number of people trained up or maybe immunized to deal with an issue. And so that's some of our evidence-based, and when we talk about our community approaches. And so when we take that public health model and apply it within the realm of suicide prevention, you know, it's quickly evident that people need to play different roles, and not everybody can play the same role. And it's part of that continuum of care. And so our programs are designed to provide training for a number of different roles in the community. And so one of our trainings might be an awareness training. Just, are you aware that suicide is really an issue in your community? And Alan, you talked about 800,000 deaths. If you look in the US, a little greater than 43,000 people a year take their lives by suicide. But the really compelling statistic in the US is it's 1.4 million people that actually have an active plan, and they're seriously contemplating suicide.
And that's only that we know about. That's only what's reported by the hospitals.
Absolutely.
Wow. And
so, you know, now that we're in this last 3 or 4 months of pandemic, you know, it's really heightened. And so I just want to make sure that we have a context here for our listeners, because it's really important to understand that this is an issue for us, and it's a growing issue. And but it's all not doom and gloom, because there's something that we can do. And And, you know, if you look at some of the reports that are coming out, you know, we see that our crisis lines have a 900% increase in call volumes compared to last year.
Wow.
So there's
900?
900% greater call volume than compared to last year. And so there's people out there that are crying for help, and understandable, right? They've been isolated. They've been, you know, they're concerned about their finances. They're concerned about how do they get back to life, you know, normal life. What is that new normal? Lots of change for people. And so just to set that context, that there's the, what we call in emergency and disaster preparedness, is that there's the response period, but then there's the recovery period. And the recovery period is what we're stepping into. And if you look at FEMA reports, if you look at all that evidence that guides that body of science, it's really important now to take action and to go into, as we go into this response period, that we get people, particularly with suicide prevention, get them trained up so that we can actually make our community strong. And so our programs are designed to train community members, and to be out there watching for somebody who might be exhibiting a sign of suicide. We also have programs that deal with somebody who's in crisis that need to be intervened with, and to be able to de-escalate, develop a care plan, and actually create that ability for them to navigate through a system, but creating a safety net for them, so that when they go from the emergency department and wait for that mental health provider, or wait for that next appointment with the mental health provider, that there's a group of resources around them that keep them safe for now.
So if I could just intervene right there for 1 second. What do you say to the people that say, well, I'm not a doctor, I don't know what I'm going to do, and if I do say something, I'm worried about doing more harm than good?
Yeah, good question.
That's a great question. And what we say to them is that we're all caring people. As a society, we care for one another. And what we all have the ability to do is to choose a role that we want to play. And so is that somebody that, you know, the skill set that I might want to have is just somebody who identifies and takes that person to somebody who can intervene. Maybe that's all that I want to play as a role. Or maybe I want to be a person that intervenes with somebody who's in crisis. That's okay. And so we can all play a role in that. And it's really important that we all understand that.
Yeah, like you're saying, and that's the premise I want to make sure that our listeners and our viewers, that message gets through to them, that everyone can play an integral part of solving this pandemic, as Alan put it. That's, you know, suicide is a problem, not just here, but just globally, as he mentioned. And you have proof, though, of this working after 9/11. Am I correct? That there was, we've heard it before, maybe some of our viewers haven't heard that before, but I've always heard the statistic that people in the military, and I know that you, I believe, served in the Navy, are more likely to die by suicide than in actual combat. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually had someone in Florida, where we're based, with the military, reach out to Livingworks, notice an increase, a significant increase with suicides after 9/11. And through your program, the military saw a significant decline, at least at that particular Florida base. So can you kind of explain how that works? And when you say everyone plays a role, what does that mean? So the viewers listening, I want you to know that if you want to help, you can do this. You can do what Alan did.
Oh, by the way, I just got to mention, Rick, I forgot to tell you, Miranda was an investigative reporter, or she is an investigative reporter. So I'm sorry, but she is really good at what she does. So,
I wonder why I'm squirming in my seat here every time she.
A long time, I know that.
Questions, and I appreciate these questions. The military installation that you're talking about is a special operations base, Air Force base in Florida, and exactly as you said, Miranda, is that they were really concerned about the number of suicides that were happening on installation. for their airmen. And you can imagine that every one of these special operators, when a suicide happens, what the impact is, not only to that individual, but also to that whole unit. And it's a fairly small base. It's about 10,000 people. But they were experiencing a significant amount of suicides within that installation, and a number of people identifying and actually having actual plans. And so they reached out to us and said, what can we do? And so we recommended that you'd implement. At that time, we had Safe Talk and Assist, which are Safe Talk is one of our identification programs, and Assist is for individuals that are in crisis to intervene. So they implemented both of those roles, the intervener and also the identifier. And what they did, and this is where community leadership is really, really important. The community, so the individual in charge of this installation said, I want all of my airmen trained. I want spouses trained, because suicides don't happen on the installation. They happen when they're off the installation.
Right.
Most of the time. And they also said, we also want our civilian personnel who work on the installation to have this training as well. We want to make a full blitz, and we want to get people skilled up. And so this is beyond awareness. This is actually a skill now. And so how to identify, creating that intuitive awareness of, hey, something's not right with my colleague over here. Something's not right. And so creating that intuitive awareness to say, all right, let's have a discussion. And then the other skill set of being able to intervene and to be able to develop a safety plan to keep that person safe, as I mentioned earlier. And so they went, they significantly dropped their rate of suicide. And we see that as a real success, because it's a community approach to this issue, and we know it works. And so we've got other examples of where it's worked as well, where you have that leadership, where you have that implementation of multiple roles, and you really make a focus on it.
Yeah, I mean, Alan's proof of that. He's participated in both of those programs, and as he mentioned earlier, thanks to your program, he knows that he's saved lives. And so anybody watching this can participate in these programs.
Yeah, and I just want to mention at this point, I just want everybody to know, and we said it, I think, before, but suicide is preventable. And what we do know is that people, they don't want to die. They have a stronger will to live than anything else. So it just takes a little bit of training to understand, to help these people out. And it really goes a long way. By the way, when you said Safe Talk basically means suicide alertness for everyone. So, and that's basically the first step of the program that you have.
That's one of our first steps. So we have an awareness program which teaches people about the issue of suicide. And then our next step is into Livingworks Start, which is an online program. It takes about 90 minutes to do. It's a very new program for us, but once again, it's evidence-based. We don't release programs, especially skill development programs, without them being evidence-based. And so that's available online. A person can take that within 90 minutes and be able to have identification skills, be able to ask the difficult question of, are you considering suicide?
I'm glad you brought that up. And that word suicide, a lot of people are afraid to say it.
Absolutely. It's a difficult subject matter, Alan, as you know, being trained in this. It's a difficult word to say, especially when you're confronting somebody, but it's so important to be able to ask that question, because it actually starts the conversation. And, research shows us, and practice has shown us, that skirting the issue doesn't get at the issue. And so I love a quote from, believe it or not, Mr. Rogers. So if you've seen the movie, it's fantastic. I loved it. And my wife reminds me of this quite often. She says, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And it's the same thing with with suicide, if we can mention that, then we have it out in the open and we can manage it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's so powerful.
I'm so glad that you said that, because it really is a silent epidemic, and Alan has been working vigorously, and as we have with this podcast, to turn up the volume, if you will, on suicide. But there are so many preconceived notions about suicide. I mean, I'm just telling you, from being in the media, we were told not to cover suicide, that it could possibly encourage someone to die by suicide, give them ideas. So you were talking about the research. I mean, obviously we can't delve into all of it, but if you were going to talk about some of the common myths out there that your research has showed, that's not true. Could you just give us a few examples of those? I mean, Alan mentioned, and you mentioned, saying the word suicide. What are some others?
I think another myth is that it takes a highly trained professional to be able to even deal with somebody who is perhaps contemplating suicide, and so that's a myth. And evidence has shown us that everybody, if you have some training, you have some skills-based training, you can actually play a significant role. And
kind of like CPR, right?
I was just going to say CPR. And did you know, Miranda, that evidence shows us that suicide prevention skill training versus CPR, you're 10 times more likely to use your suicide prevention skills training than you are CPR.
Wow. I didn't know that.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some evidence that actually supports that.
You know something, and there's another point to it, because not everybody that you're going to talk to that you think is depressed is suicidal. So even saying that word, or you're thinking about suicide, can actually help somebody. First of all, you understand that maybe they aren't suicidal, but also maybe they are depressed or something's going on. You could still get them help, and you could still help someone. So it really goes a long way to determining whether someone is in a crisis and you have to stay with them or you have to get them help, or somebody's not in a crisis, but hey, they just need somebody, to listen to them.
Absolutely. And, and it's an important part of the conversation. It's a really important place to start from. And if that person says, no, I'm not thinking about suicide, but thank you for asking, but I'm dealing with financial issues, or I'm dealing with other issues, that's great. You've started that conversation. But if you don't ask the question, are you thinking about suicide? And somebody is thinking about suicide, we hear over and over about, wow, I wish I would have asked. When people come through our training and they start to relay stories, and they start to say, this person in my life, if I would have had this training today, I think I could have played a role in keeping that individual safe.
Yeah, and I don't want to go through the whole course now. Obviously, we're not gonna. It's a 4-hour course for the Safe Talk, but there's another important part of the class, which is the 3 elements, which is miss, dismiss, or avoid, which
Correct.
A lot of people have. Can you go into a little bit about what those 3 words mean, basically?
Yeah, so I'd actually love to hear what you've learned about miss, dismiss, and avoid.
Yeah,
you're putting me on the spot here. So obviously, there's 3 things that could happen when somebody.
Wait, I just want to clarify, Alan, though, before you go in that, because I know we're talking about 3 different programs. Am I correct? And Alan, you've done 2 of them, right?
I did the STAR program also.
Oh, wow. Overachiever over here. Okay. Show off. I just want to make sure that we distinguish which program is which when you talk
So this is basically all 3 of them.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, everything starts off with the awareness. And if I'm wrong, you could interrupt me and explain the differences. But, it's all about the awareness to begin with, because that's where it starts from. So when you're going in to talk to somebody, if you see the signs, then obviously you could either miss it. Well, actually, you could dismiss it, or you could avoid it. And then there's obviously, if you don't recognize what's going on, that's another one. That's, missing the signs. So it's a really important thing. But I think having the training to understand how to deal with it, you're not going to go in you're going to understand more how to deal with it and how to talk to people. And to me, it's more about not talking to people. It's about listening to people.
Mm-hmm. What did you get the most out of it? Because I mean, obviously you're kind of, you're kind of a big deal, Alan, when it comes to suicide prevention awareness. But I think the question that Rick was asking there was like, what were some of the biggest things?
Well, I will say that something that I find in the trainings when I give the training is a lot of people feel that they have to basically give advice, explain to people, this is the reason why you don't want to do it. And we don't want to get into that, but it's not the case. You don't want to say, and I hope this is okay me saying this, but you don't want to say, hey, what's going to happen to little Johnny, or what's going to happen, what are they going to do? That's not the right way to approach it.
And why isn't it though? Can you explain without going like great in depth, but why isn't it? Because I would think that would be what you do want to say. And you're saying, no, why is that? I'm sure it's research based.
Rick, if you want to go a little bit into that.
Alan's like,
I could explain it, but he has the research base there.
Oh, okay. You didn't memorize those stats? Come on, Alan.
Oh, I did, but.
One of the important things is that we're here to guide the conversation, and the skill-based training that you get helps you navigate that conversation, and you want to really start to have that individual understand that it's okay to feel what you're feeling, but let's walk through a journey, and that's really where hope starts to rekindle itself. And so, developing the safety plan keeps that individual safe for now, but that's that individual's plan. They have to own it. And so the program, especially Assist, really takes us through that ability to develop a safety plan that says, what kind of resources can help you stay safe for now? What are perhaps lethal means that you're considering as part of your plan? What can we do with those to help you stay safe for now? What sort of resources do you need to have around you? Family members, the emergency department, when you're discharged from the emergency department, coming back into that safety net of your resources to help you through that journey. And really that individual has to own their own plan, and they have to create that plan. Our role is to really create that ability to navigate and to bring those pieces to bear so that individual can actually own their own plan.
See, that's the reason why I went to him to do it, because he is very eloquent in the way he says it. I'm just very abrupt. But anyway, you know
but you're good at what you do. It's really worked for you. These programs have worked for you. Can you give us some examples? Again, I know we don't want to.
Well, I'm not going to talk about the specifics, but what I will say is the one thing that I do notice that's a common theme with everybody is everybody feels alone. When they're in that situation, they feel like nobody can understand what they're going through. And that's why I think it's more important to listen to them and to let them talk than for you to give advice, because advice ain't going to help them, because why are you giving advice? They think that they're alone and nobody understands what they're going through. I've been there. After my daughter passed away, I was there. And the only way that I came out of it was when I went to, and I mentioned to you, Miranda, I went to group counseling and I just kept my mouth quiet. And when somebody said something that I was thinking, I'm like, oh my God, how did they understand what I was thinking? How did they read my head? So at that point, I understood that I'm not alone, and a lot of people do feel the way I feel. It is very powerful just listening to people and understanding how to approach. And I've been on the phone with people or in person with people where I haven't talked for 5 minutes and just let it go until they said a word.
That's impressive, because I talk to you all the time.
Yeah, for me to keep my mouth closed, the training really works. And by the way, Rick, the training is not just a Canadian thing. Like we said, it's not just an American thing. Everybody, it doesn't matter your nationality, it doesn't matter anything. This training works for everybody, right?
Absolutely. And, and we're training, as I mentioned earlier, we're a global training organization. We just happen to be headquartered in Canada, but we have offices throughout throughout the world. We have trainers throughout the world, and so we not only in community, but we're also in key demographics. such as school systems, we're in hospitals, health systems, we're in the military, we're in veterans communities. And, the list goes on and on. Construction industry is right now really ramping up for us. So, it's very applicable to any industry and anywhere in the world. And because it's a skill that individuals can learn no matter what their backgrounds. And Alan, I'm guessing you're not a psychiatrist or a
Nope.
mental health professional. But
thank goodness. No, I'm kidding.
you're a great case example here.
I'm just giving him a hard time. He's amazing. He's amazing.
You're a great case example here of for your listeners to say, hey, anybody can do this. but it's, and I mean,
if they can do it, anybody can do it.
No, but it is true. I mean, and again, I've mentioned this before too, and I've had actually professionals come up to me and, say to me, why do you do this? Why are you going out there and try to help people? That's not what your job is. And I tell them it's everybody's job to look out for everybody.
Yeah, I love that.
It really is. And that's where the suicide. So and I'll go into that a little more, but I want to go into the suicide safe community again, because that's a really powerful thing. I mean, not everybody has to be assist trained.
No.
So just if you could talk about what the layers are a little bit.
And so, our program is designed to be integrated. It's a continuum of training. And so when we have a community of people, and that's where we live, where we work, where we play, where we learn, when we have communities that are actually designed to have those skill sets in them, we call that a safe community. And we want to reach a certain threshold in that community, and this is some of that public health evidence about developing that herd immunity, or that critical threshold where you have the connectors. So an individual who's connected from somebody who's Livingworks START trained to somebody who's Livingworks Assist trained, somebody that's connected to somebody who's Livingworks Safe Talk trained to somebody who's Livingworks Assist trained, because then you start to create this, what we call a safety net. And if I can give you a personal example about how that works.
Please do.
Please do.
So, a close personal friend of ours happened through, and was at our house, and so all of a sudden I found myself in the middle of an intervention, where this person had developed a plan. This person had actually identified to two of her closest friends in the community that she lives in that she was seriously considering suicide. And so she just happened to be talking to me about this. And so what we did is we said, okay, and I'm really, this is a longer conversation than what we have time for today. But essentially what we did is we developed a safety plan together, because I'm assist trained, and I can, I'm working through identifying resources for her. Well, she tells me that she has these two very close friends in her community that she had told about this, and she said, was it ever different once I told them that I was thinking about suicide? They did not know what to do. They couldn't even carry on a conversation with me after, and it was from a perspective of caring but not knowing what to do. And so I said, would it be okay if we actually reached out to them, got them some training, and actually had them part of your safety net? So we had them access our Livingworks START program, which is our online program, trained them up, and then had a discussion with them. And we talked about, how do we keep this individual safe? And they said, it was, now looking at it, they said, after taking this training, I know exactly what to do. I know how to have a conversation with this individual. I'm not scared to have this conversation any longer. Because I know how important it is, and I feel confident to do that. And I thought, well, this is really a safety net for this individual. And what we've been doing, and so this is about 6 months ago, We've been her consistent safety net as she's gone through a journey and seeing the professionals that she needs to see, but she knows that if she's dipping below the line, we'll call it, right, where she's feeling very, very lost, that she can reach out to any one of us. She has created her own accountabilities to us to make sure that we help her in those times of need. And so I'm very happy to say she is still alive today, and she is doing really well. And
that's awesome.
Her hope is growing, right?
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
I do want to make a point of saying that what Assist Trained is and what Safe Talk is, it's not an ongoing thing. It's just you're in that place at the right time, or somebody knows of somebody and reaches out to you for that moment. It's not, we're not counselors. It's not a long-term process. It's just at that moment to get the process started and save a life right there. And then the journey begins of planning, like you were saying, then get them the right help with treatment and whatever else they need. The thing that I love about it too is in the course you even train, and hopefully you guys could see, this is a sample of one, of basically a keep safe connection that we actually hold on to. And
I
think it's going in
there.
Oh, I'm sorry. But
that's
anyway.
Okay. That was a great magic trick, though. We loved it.
Don't you love it? Disappearing paper. I love it, too.
I love it. No, you actually disappeared as well.
I'm going to go on America's Got Talent now. Anyway.
There you go. No,
because I went quick.
I think it's interesting, just because you guys have gone through the programs, just so the viewer understands, there's like 3 different programs. Is that correct? And can you briefly explain what each of those programs are, just for the viewers?
So the first skill-based program is Livingworks Start, and that's our online program, and that teaches an individual to be somebody who's a connector, or somebody who can identify and connect people to others.
And that can be anybody.
And that can be anybody, and that is online. It's accessible on our website, livingworks.net, and it's called Livingworks Start.
And by the way, we're going to be putting a link to all this on our RealConvo page too.
Correct.
So then the second program is a face-to-face training, and it's called Livingworks Safe Talk. And that face-to-face training is 4 hours in length, and really teaches a deeper level of what Livingworks Starts has taught you. And so it goes deeper into that identification skill. It creates what we call an intuitive awareness. So a real awareness of your situation around you, and how you can identify individuals that might be off, that might be really suffering.
And who is that specifically designed for? I'm imagine anybody can take it, but is there particular individuals who especially it's designed for?
It's intended for community members that want to be an identifier, that want to take on that skill set. And typically it's for people 16 and up.
Okay.
Right. The next program that we've talked about is Livingworks Assist. And that program really gets you the skills to be able to do an intervention when somebody's in crisis. And Alan has talked quite a bit about his skill set in that you essentially approach somebody that's in crisis. You walk through with them, try to get to the point of developing a plan that keeps them safe for now, right? An agreement, if you will, that they'll agree to enable these resources around them to help them keep safe for now.
And who is that designed for? Again, I'm just trying to help navigate the viewer through this journey of our podcast.
So that's intended for community members, once again, also health providers. There's our mental health providers. A lot of our health providers take this program. It's the gold standard for our crisis lines. That is the standard of practice for crisis lines for people who are answering on the end of the phone. And so it's a fairly broad audience, but it's somebody that really wants to have that skill and understand that skill to intervene with somebody in crisis. That program stays in length.
Oh, sorry.
Face-to-face training.
Yeah. So that's actually what I was going to bring up. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you were talking about the face-to-face training, obviously it's a horrible situation, right? Because you have COVID, and you just mentioned suicide rates are crisis hotlines, everything's skyrocketing. And yet you have a couple training programs that are designed for people to be face-to-face. So what are you doing in that situation?
So what we've done is we've come out with, consistent with public health guidance, is we've come out with a smaller number of classes, right? A number of people in a class, created safe social distancing guidelines, created an environment where we can still continue our face-to-face trainings. Now, not every state or not every province or every country has the same guidelines because they're at different stages of the pandemic. But we did have a brief interlude, if you will, because of the public health measures that were in place. But those trainings have pretty well resumed, but under this new guidance. So smaller number of classes, greater social distancing, making sure that we're adhering to that. The other piece of it is Livingworks Start is always available online, and you can take it on your iPad, you can take it on your computer, you can take it on your phone, and so it's easily accessible for our community.
But all classes, or just the one in particular, the online course, but the assist and the other, what's the other one? That Safe Talk. Are those only available face-to-face, or have you done like a virtual training, if you will?
Because of the nature of the training, it's very intensive. As far as you have your didactic, or your instructor is up talking to you, but then you go into simulations, and so that simulation piece, that's very difficult to do online with this nature of program. And so yes, they still have to be face-to-face. So that's Safe Talk and Assist, those two programs. We do have refresher for Assist, that's online, but that's for somebody that's already gone through and learned the skill sets, but they just want to improve those skills.
Yeah, I have to say that the training that you guys do, and it is important to do it in person, but I was really impressed by the STAR program too. You have the interaction, the videos that you have really help out a lot. There is, again, they have you doing it. So again, when I went to the training, it was hard to do it. You were always thinking like, am I gonna be able to do this? You were thinking about that. Are you worried? And I will tell you that, maybe I didn't do so good at the training, but when you go into mode, and when I first recognized what was going on, especially that first time, you get a little bit nervous in the beginning, but once you go into mode, that training kicked in. And I wasn't thinking about anything except what I did in that training class. And obviously it works. I'm living proof that it works. So yeah. Living works. That's actually, no pun intended. Actually, I got the pun intended there.
Yeah, that was good. Actually, I was really impressed. I'm rubbing off on you just a little bit. So Rick, since we were talking about everything being kind of evidence-based, can you kind of give us, again, I don't want to go into tons of statistics, but obviously you've been around for 35 years. You've come up with all these programs. You know it works. We talked about the Florida Air Force Base. Can you give us some examples, some stats that prove that, hey, this program is working and we know this for a fact?
Absolutely. So, we have different types of evidence, and because, you need a fullness of evidence to understand what are you making the intended impact that you're designed to do. And so some of that comes from feedback from, through our training. And so as we have a pre-survey that says, how comfortable are you with this topic area? What experience do you have in it? And we also have, after they've gone through the training, that same questionnaire. So that's a style of evidence to achieve the outcomes of the training itself. But then we also have evidence where researchers, independent from us, go out and actually research the applicability of our training. They research this in comparison to other programs that are out there, and they talk about what's best practice, and they identify what's best practice, and they've identified our programs as best practice, and so those go on, and that's really important evidence for decision makers as they're choosing programs. As I mentioned, crisis lines have identified Livingworks Assist as being the standard for crisis lines for all those.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to bring that up. Not only does the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention use Safe Talk and Assist, and we don't, we arrange the classes, and that's how I took my classes. But also our local, and I don't know if you know this, Miranda, but 211 here locally, the Treasure Coast, Palm Beach Treasure Coast, use they have Assist trained people there too. So the crisis hotline uses it, AFSP, a lot of the big organizations, they all rely on this program to train the people.
So if people are interested, I know we talked about the military and you mentioned 211, but if,
actually, if I could just say one other thing too.
Sure.
I was actually called to do a Safe Talk training, which was a big honor at the military base here. And they called specifically because the program that this gentleman had to go into required Safe Talk. So the military also recognizes it too. So it really is, the research is there to prove that it works. And by the way, the head of the suicide prevention for that base I trained the head of the suicide prevention in that class.
See, he's bragging now.
Yes, I am.
He's like,
okay.
Just so you know, I've taken all the classes. They invited me. I'm kind of a big deal. You heard that, right?
I got to get it out there somehow.
You are a big deal, though, and I think it's great that you did that. I think, no, you know that. I do. I think it's amazing. So I'm just curious. Obviously, we mentioned you had to make some adjustments with some of your programs because they are intense and face-to-face. So obviously, if you're an individual, you can take the online program. But do you have, what if, I don't know, a city leader or somebody with the military or a business perhaps is interested in taking some of your programs? How does that work?
So what they would do is they would contact us here at our office through our website or by phone, and they would tell us, here's what we're thinking about for our organization, or here's a need in our organization. Can you, what can you do for us? And so what we do is we would go in and then we would actually provide a consultation service to that organization and say, let's talk about the goals that you want to achieve. What are some of your issues that you're trying to address? And then what we do is we custom fit our offerings to that organization to really create that safety network that we've talked about, that network of safety within that organization to create a safe community. And so it's simple to do as far as reaching out to us. And we try to be very, very responsive because we see this as a significant need in all of our communities.
Are there particular organizations or communities that are more prone or seeing a particular increase during this time? Have you noticed? Just curious.
Yeah, I would say that, on a general sense, during this time, we're hearing from health systems about the number of suicides that are happening. So
are you referring to people that work in the healthcare industry?
I'm referring to community members themselves.
Okay.
I want to be careful not to identify a certain sector.
Right.
Because I think that's, I don't want to misrepresent that or even cause concern within a certain community. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we know that the veterans in the U.S. is always a concern. The president developed the Prevents campaign. They have some really neat things coming out as a result of that. They have a real emphasis coming out. They know that that's a community at risk and is one that they're concerned about. Our military is one that's suicide is the #1 cause of death in the U.S.
Yeah.
And #1 cause of death. And so there's a number of leaders within the military that are really paying attention to this. And I mentioned earlier about the significance of leadership in our communities. Now is the time to step up and to be a leader. Now is the time.
So could like a mayor or something contact you and say, I'm interested in doing this and doing some, so it doesn't have to be like a particular organization. It could be a mayor of a town or whatever.
We work with mayors, we work with governors, we work with, because there's mayor's initiatives for suicide prevention, such as Los Angeles. A number of states actually have governor's initiatives for suicide prevention. And so that leadership is really stepping up to the charge. And recognizing that suicide is an issue within their particular state, within their county, or within their city. And corporations are actually stepping up as well and saying we need to do something in our communities because these are maybe our customers, or maybe our staff, or maybe family members of our staff. And so just to kind of give you an idea of that community-based leadership that's actually stepping forward.
That's great.
And again, we really appreciate you coming on, Rick. I got to tell you from the bottom of my heart, you help me help other people, and I owe you guys a lot. It really does make a difference, and that's the reason why we wanted you to come on, because we wanted to get this message out to everybody nationwide, globally, whatever, that, there is help out there, whether, just have mental health issues, mental illness obviously is, something that's out there. We could help. Suicide is preventable, and, you could reach out. So again, give us your website again. We're going to put a link on our page and how people could reach out.
Great. At livingworks.net is our website. So, I mean, if you wanted to go www.livingworks.net.
Yeah, that's really hard to remember, so that's good.
Just go to RealConvo. We'll have all the information on there. Rick, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you both for what you're doing. Getting these messages out into our community is so important. And Alan, for the efforts that you've made in your community, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, because it's every one of us has to be out there and using our skills that we have, and I know it's personal for both of you, and so anything that I can do to help, and anytime that you want me on this program, I'm more than happy to. It's a real honor, and so thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. And we want to let you know that you matter, and we want to let everybody out there know that you matter. So thank you again, and be safe.
All the best. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
For more Real Convos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.